G'day everyone, welcome to another video. This one is sponsored by Whoosh Motorsports that have sent me some parts, and we're going to replace some hoses in the engine bay. The two hoses that I'm replacing today, Whoosh Motorsports sent to me, is this top breather hose, because I had an issue where this popped off. I posted a picture on Instagram and they sent me a message and we worked something out. And there's another breather hose that goes down here. So we'll have a look at the Whoosh Motorsport parts next. We'll get the engine cover off, we'll locate the hoses, and I'll pop up some screenshots from Whoosh Motorsports because they actually have a diagram that show which hoses they are and where they join, and then we'll get to replacing them. These are the two hoses in question. We've got the top breather hose, which when I unwrap it you'll be able to see is basically molded to the same shape as this hose, and hopefully so will this be. I haven't been able to have a look at that underneath yet, but I'm assuming that that's going to be the same. Also got some cool stickers and two banana air fresheners, one of which is in there. So let's pop off the engine cover. We'll locate, I think we'll try and locate the bottom hose first. That'll be the hard one. We'll get that one out of the way. We'll unpackage these and I'll show you what they're like. With the engine cover popped off, there's just 4 posts, and you literally just wiggle it off. It's not secured down any particular way. So really easy to see now. We're going to replace this hose and we're going to replace this hose, which goes underneath the intake there. Now, these are the hoses. This is for this side. Very nicely made. They look like they're going to fit. This one flares out at the end. Just as you can see, that's thicker there than it is there. So that's really nice touch. And they're multi-layered silicone, so they should be quite sturdy and strong. Now each kit also comes with 2 hose clamps. The standard ones are the pinch clamps that are fantastic for the standard hoses. They're a pain in the ass to get off, but we'll get them off. This one's just a squeeze. Now if you were replacing this and you were putting a standard one back on, or if you were doing your crossover pipe and putting this back on, just be aware these have got a little O-ring in them, and don't pinch the O-ring when you refit them, otherwise you're going to have an air leak. So I think I'm going to tackle this one first, and it's just literally 2 clamps and pull it off. Let's see how easy that is. So I've got some bent end pliers. Just going to squeeze that up. Well, that was easier than I thought. The other one's right underneath and it's the same deal. So that one might be a touch harder. But while I'm up here, I'm going to get to this one too. Now I'm not going to be able to film this one, but you can see the pinch clamp right in there underneath the intake manifold. So it's not going to be worth filming because I can't get the light in there, but it's the same process. You just pinch them together and wriggle that hose off, and that will then come out. And there you go, that's off. So that one was a little bit awkward, but really quite easy. It probably took about a minute. There's just not much room in there with the size pliers that I've got, but what I found is once you've got the clamp pinched, if you reach in with your other hand, you can pull the hose off quite easily. And now it's going to be as easy as replacing them. Okay, I've taken one of the clamps out. It's a 7mm bit that you need, a 7mm socket. And to put these next to each other, you can see that they're going to fit, which is good news. So this hose you actually have to feed, there's a little notch here, you need to feed it down through there and then clamp it on down under there and clamp it on up here. So I'll show you what that looks like. that is it right in there. So it was a bit hard to get in there with a clamp. I ended up using this setup with a 7mm. If you didn't need the extension and you just had a 7mm, you'd be even easier. You'd be better off. Have one of these handy too. An extendable, flexible clamp magnet thing, because when I was trying to attach it, it fell off and it went down and I couldn't see it. But anyway, it was actually pretty easy all up. It fits perfectly. It even squeezes into that notch. Now the standard one squeezes in there as well, and there's no wear. If one end was attached to something external to the engine and there was lots of engine movement and whatnot, you'd be more worried about it rubbing through, but it's attached to the engine and the engine, so it's all good. Now let's move on to the top one. As you've already seen, I pulled the bottom part off. That was just the pinch clamp. Now this one, you will see a bit of a gap up the top and the same at the bottom. They are what you need to pinch and give it a wriggle. Gonna have to use my strong hand. And there you go. And I'll come into the light. You can see that blue O-ring. That's what I was talking about before. If you were replacing a standard one, or if you were doing your crossover and putting your standard one back on, don't pinch that O-ring in the fitting, because you'll get an air leak. But that's not relevant to this, because we're going to put the Whoosh one on, and that's just held on by hose clamps. Job is done. These fit on nice and easy. You just give them a bit of a wriggle and they fit on. That's both of the hoses. You don't need to see me screw up some clamps. I like to keep my clamps somewhere where they're pretty serviceable, but also where I can, especially the ones that are going to be seen that the engine cover's not going to cover. I like to hide them as best I can. But the fitment's perfect. There was a question that was posed to me on YouTube when I posted a picture whether this hose was going to fit, because some of the US ones have got like a plastic 90 degree here and it just looks different. Yes, they fit. Yes, it's all the same orientation. I would only assume that there's more emissions stuff going on the US cars that happens around here, but this fits the Euro models perfectly. Really impressed with how this one's fitting. This one I've tightened up a fair bit because that's a metal crossover now. Just be aware, all these fittings are mostly plastic, so you need to tighten it, but don't over tighten it. You don't want to be cracking the plastic. The only thing left to do is refit the engine cover, and that's it. Okay, I've just tried to fit the engine cover and it won't fit because it fails on this. I'm not sure if this part here is actually flared or if it's just where it goes over the pipe, but as you can see, that's the difference. So this would go around the engine cover and this one is just a bit in the way. So you might actually be able to trim this hose. I'm not going to bother. I'm just going to leave the engine cover off. You might be able to trim that hose. There is a thing on the page for this that says 2016-17. It'll be worth trimming for perfect fitment. I don't know if that's US specific or if that is relative to these as well, but I'm just going to leave the engine cover off anyway. It doesn't really bother me. But yeah, that's the difference that you'll notice, is that is a right angle right off the crossover and that sticks out just a little bit. But other than that, fitment's perfect. It fits onto these great, and got a little Whoosh Motorsports logo just in here. So job done. Thanks for watching, guys. Big thank you to Whoosh Motorsports for sending these hoses over. The install's easy, anyone can do it. It's just a bit fiddly, especially underneath the intake manifold. But other than that, as long as you've got some bent end pliers, and a 7mm socket, or even a 7mm adjustable spanner or a ratchet spanner would be even better again. But some nice black silicone hoses. Now that they've got the hose clamps, hopefully that one's not going to pop off again, and it's a nice little upgrade. So thank you again, Ron and the team at Whoosh. Been great working with you, and thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, share, subscribe, and there's more to come.